are live, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you could hear me. Hopefully we'll get a confirmation if you guys can hear me or not. I'm thinking you can. I know we're on. That's the truth. But we'll see if we go on. I'm getting one confirmation that we're black, but that's because I have it switched over on the feed and we're on a delay. So we'll see in a second if we're live, the picture's on, but I'm pretty sure we were able to see the intro, which came off. Now we just want to make sure that the audio is going through. We got to make sure the damn audio is going through and you all can hear me loud and clear. We are broadcasting from a new facility. Yes, we are. Once again, we are evolving. And we got done really late at about say 5 o'clock in the morning. I think it was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and we're still trying to work out all the bugs in the feed and what is going on. But we're still adjusting. It's still black. One of my reports are it's black and there's no audio, but again, we have a delay from the feed and what we're doing to what comes through on the out into the internet world. So they keep hitting me saying it's black, it's black, it's black. And I'm now we're good. All right, we're good. Damn it, we're good. That's the reports I'm getting. You're good. That's what I'm hearing. You're good. I like it when things actually come out good. So we're good, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Rob Black Show. And here's my question. How's the audio? Does the audio sound a little better now that it's a different setup? Is the audio coming through clearer? We've got new mics going on. So I'm just curious to see if the audio is a little better. Oh, I'm being told the audio sounds great. Wow. Oh man, woo! This is see the whole vibe, and it's got like the waist shot, so it's not this whole far shot going on. I feel a little out of my sorts. So hold on a second. Let me try to get ready here. Okay. Oh man, what a great! Oh, I'm getting a second report of the audio being real good. Well, that's good because we're gonna be. I told everybody resituating up our blog feeds or. I want to say blog. They're not blogs. They're podcasts. So we're going to be redoing up our podcasts so that you could get it everywhere, and it's better and wholesome or whatever. Anyways, let's do it. It's the Rob Black Show, beaming to you. From a remote location. I feel fat. I hate having this little pooch. It's like this. It's like a little tire. I hate it. Anyways, hey, at least I don't have the Ebola. So let's get on to everything that's happening in the world. Now, yesterday, we were discussing with everybody the concepts of Turkey and the fact that all of these news stories are like one giant Thanksgiving celebration. And it really is, because there is a continuous talk of Ebola. And just like Thanksgiving turkey, it lasts for weeks and weeks and weeks. And when you have all of these relatives over, and I would say out of the 20 or 30 you have there, 2 of them you like, the rest of them you despise, and they never, ever leave. So, just like Ebola, we despise it, we hate it, it'll never leave, and we just keep talking about it in different variations. So, the newest updates, and let me give you all of the new information, if you will, about what is happening. So, the nurse, Fawn, I think is her name. I think it's Nancy Fawn. I think that's what it is. Hold on. Let me be completely accurate. I know it's a some type of Japanese name, I think, or a Chinese name, or a Vietnamese name, something like that. I know it's Fawn. Damn it. It's it's Fawn. What? It's just Fawn. All right. So let's look up Fawn here. Where's the little fawn? I guess it's not important that we have her name. It's weird because I always have the names written down, but I guess in this aspect I didn't put the girl's name down and exactly what her first name was, and that's kind of a pisser. I always do that. I always write people's names down, but in this case, I didn't put it down. Anyways, Miss Fawn. Let's just call her Nurse Fawn. Does that work? Does that work? Nurse Fawn. So Nina, it's Nina, and it's probably not even Fawn, but it's PHAMS. PHAMS. That's like fawn, I think. It's close to fawn. Anyways, so the news is Nina, the nurse from Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, who was a part of the staff that treated Duncan. She's doing stable. That's what they called it. It's stable. So she's in stable condition right now, and got a blood transfusion from the first doctor that was infected in the Ebola. We all remember him, Kent Brantley. Kent sent over some of his blood. They call it like golden blood, and she got a blood transfusion. It really is pretty telling when all the white people, and she's actually Asian, so she falls in that middle gray area. But all the white people get all the super treatment. All the white people get the super treatment, and the Duncan, gets the lay there in the plastic bubble and die treatment. Anyways, and Nina Pham got Kent Brantley blood. That's what she did. Kent Brantley, the first Ebola patient. He's the doctor that caught the bug out in Africa there in Liberia. He was flown back to the United States. They gave him all the super drugs, the Z-Map, and at the end of the day, he recovered. He's doing good. He went out on a media tour, and everything's grand. So they figure his blood has some antibodies, a super secret serum, kind of like those movies, Outbreak, things like that, where it's the blood of somebody that beat the infection. So that blood was given to Nina Pham, and she is doing stable. That's what they call it. She's stable right now. She sent out a thank you to everybody that's been giving her well wishes, and said she's thankful for the great care that she's getting at the hospital, which I know that's BS, because this hospital is pretty bad with their track record of Ebola patients. They misdiagnose, they send people home with Ebola, then they come back, then they die, and then the other healthcare workers that are working on the people with Ebola, they die or they get the disease. It's just not a very good track record. But what's Nina going to say? She's sitting there with tubes hooked up to her, and her life is in the people at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. So she said everything's going good. She thanks everybody, and hopefully she'll get stronger and better, and she will beat this. So that is what's happening with Nina right now. Nina is at the hospital. Now, I got a question, and it's something that really was bothering me last night when I kept seeing reports on the old TV referencing hospital protocol and things that the hospitals are equipped for and what they're trained in. So you've had a media blitz, and that's what I would call it, a media blitz, trying to deflect blame from the Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, trying to deflect the blame from the doctors and nurses, trying to deflect the blame from people in the hospital business with the Ebola disease and people misdiagnosing it, and people getting themselves infected because they're not following protocol or they're not following procedure. And you see these nurses and healthcare workers and people on the old media, rather it's MSNBC, rather it's Fox, rather it's CNN, talking about that they're not equipped for Ebola, and they are not supposed to be handling these types of things, and it's not their fault. It's really weird, because we're not talking about urgent care clinics. We're not talking about a clinic that's operating in the poor areas of cities and in states. We're not talking about walk-in style doctor offices that basically treat people with no health insurance for your common ailment. Rather it's hemorrhoid or their tummy hurts. The things that are basic that you would go to an urgent care facility if you didn't have health insurance and you didn't have a primary doctor. None of these hospitals that are out talking about not being equipped and not having the proper training and not having all of these things that would go along with battling a disease like Ebola. All of these places are passing the buck in my mind. And again, we're not talking about clinics, we're talking about hospitals. Now, if you have a heart attack, okay? If you have a heart attack, you're out on the golf course and you have a heart attack and they rush you to Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. They will diagnose you. They could possibly say you are having a heart attack due to clotted arteries, and in turn they will open your chest up. They could change valves. They could put stents in. You could pass out and be rushed to the hospital where they admit you into the facility where they take a CAT scan, brain scan, neuro scan, realize that you have a subdural hematoma. I mean, all of the things that we go through in our lives that are pretty bad when it comes to health issues on a regular basis, car accidents, we go to hospitals. They don't take us to urgent care clinics. They take us to hospitals like Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. So when you hear these nurses and these doctors talking about they're not equipped, they're not ready to deal with a disease like this. When I hear my liberal talk show hosts somehow giving these doctors and nurses and hospitals a pass by saying maybe Ebola patients should be sent to one facility that specializes in Ebola, I'm bewildered because one would think that opening up someone's chest, taking their heart in their hand, taking arteries, replacing arteries, putting the heart back in, a procedure that could take up to 10, 12 hours. One would think that open heart surgery of a magnitude like that is something that, maybe a little more delicate than dealing with Ebola. And yet, we trust every hospital in the nation with procedures like this. When President Reagan was shot and they rushed him to the hospital, the doctors have talked in documentaries about when they couldn't find the bullet and they knew he was hemorrhaging and they couldn't find the bullet. And the doctor says at one point they had to move the heart. And he said he was sitting there holding the leader of the free world, the President of the United States' heart in his hand, and it was beating. You're going to tell me that that hospital isn't equipped enough to deal with somebody that comes in with a disease that, if you follow protocol, is pretty tough to get unless you're licking that person's sweaty body and having them urinate and put fecal matter on you. Again, it's perplexing to listen to healthcare providers talk about they're not equipped, they're not trained. If you go to school to be a doctor for 10 years, shouldn't you kind of know how to deal with diseases like Ebola, West Nile virus, things like that? If you're a nurse and you've gone to school for 4 or 5 years and you're working in operating rooms with doctors that are performing brain surgery and open heart and things like that, don't you think they should know how to deal with a disease that ultimately, if you're wearing protective gear, you just have to properly know how to take off the protective gear? And if you're at a hospital being treated by nurses and doctors who don't know how to do those basic things that Doctoring 101 would teach you, again, when you watch a doctor scrub up for a surgery and the doctors clean themselves and they walk around like this, okay? And then they put the gloves on. Someone puts the gloves on for them. And they're walking around like this. They're doing that because they're sterile. And now everything on them is sterile. You don't see that doctor go, okay, I got everything sterile on me. Okay, scratching my balls, scratching my nose. Oh, let me open the door. Hey, let me high five. Hey, oh, now let me go inside the patient's chest. It's common sense. No different than if you got your protective gear on and you walk into a Ebola patient's room and you're working on this patient. Once you're done, common sense would tell you that 9 out of 10 times you probably have Ebola on you. Some point, maybe there was splash of some type that is on you. You then, common sense would say, you don't walk into another room and go, like you're a fucking painter taking off your clothing after you got done painting a room. One would think that the minute you touch the contaminated clothing with bare hands, you are now contaminated because you don't have protective gear on taking this off. Again, I don't know why people are saying nurses and doctors aren't trained properly to handle these types of things. To me, it's basically the reverse of scrubbing up to work on somebody's brain. When you're working on someone's brain, you don't want outside disease or anything like that to get inside that patient because they could get an infection and die. So in turn, it's of the utmost importance to be sterile and clean when you're working on that person. Just common sense. So it worries me that we have hospitals and we have doctors making millions of dollars a year and nurses making $70,000-$80,000 a year. And they're saying, well, we don't know how to deal with Ebola. Well, that doesn't make me confident if I have a heart attack and I get rushed in there and I'm on within minutes of dying, and they're going to have to crack my chest open to prevent my heart from exploding because I got 4 arteries clogged. Well, it doesn't fucking make me confident when we're talking about brain surgery. It doesn't make me confident about any of the hospitals when you're seeing these union leaders or these officials speaking for different organizations saying, hey man, we don't know how to deal with this. It's like you go to school your entire life. You don't have a course in dealing with infectious disease? Well, not like this. What do you mean not like this? This isn't something that just popped up out of the blue. Ebola has been around for years. Ebola has been around for years. Now, we haven't had it in the United States before, but it's still a disease. It's still something that any healthcare provider or doctor or nurse would know how to deal with in medical school, learning about different diseases that have ravaged the world. So it's a cop-out when you hear doctors and nurses say they're not equipped. It's a cop-out when you hear liberal talk show hosts, which give Democrats like myself a bad name, say, maybe we should have a special clinic where these people are treated at. Why? You're talking about hospitals. That's like saying that USC or UCLA or Cedars-Sinai, they're not good enough to handle somebody with Ebola. What, are you insane? You're talking about hospitals that get people that come in that have just gotten into accidents and they're hanging on to life by a thread. And they get emergency surgery and live. You're going to tell me that somebody being wheeled in on the brink of death that gets treated and gets saved, that entire staff can't handle somebody walking in going, hey man, I just came from West Africa. Do you think I got Ebola? What? They're like, oh, come here, let me lick you. How does this fathom in people's heads? I would think hospitals around the United States, we're not even talking about the globe because the United States is the greatest country in the world. We have the best medical staff. We have the best physicians. We have the best nurses. So I would imagine that the United States medical profession should be able to deal with Ebola. And if they're not, send them all back to school and add a couple years on top of what they normally would go for to get a degree. If a nurse can be a nurse with a 4-year degree, say they got to go for 6 years. And they have a whole year's worth of training how to take off infectious clothes. I mean, again, if you're just letting nurses and doctors in that don't know how to take off infected clothing, then I don't know what this country is going to become in another 2, 3, 4 years with the people that are coming out of college or going to college and becoming nurses and doctors. If they're that stupid that they can't figure out how to properly deal with this, then we're doomed. We are doomed as a society. Literally. Literally. I mean, it's just so bait. When I'm in the kitchen cooking food and I'm dealing with raw chicken, totally conscious of washing my hands and knowing what I touched with what food utensil and what was being cooked so that salmonella doesn't get inside my body and I get sick. I mean, just American people are taught about salmonella and proper cooking techniques with food so people don't get ill. I mean, this is just your average run-of-the-mill dummies like me who are like, oh, I used this knife when cutting this raw chicken. I better not just wipe it with a napkin and continue to use it on other food or on somebody's sandwich. Gee, this knife is contaminated now, and it could possibly make someone sick. Who knows? But I don't want to take that chance because I know how to properly handle raw meat. So, if the American people have a sense of what to do when they're cooking and different diseases. I mean, for Christ's sakes, when you go to a supermarket and you see a dented up can, you don't buy it because you could get botulism from a can being dented. Sure, it's not exactly on the top of the list of things that could happen, but there's still a chance. And you, as a consumer, when you're shopping, go, ooh, I don't want the dented can. I mean, we don't even buy food packaged that is tampered with. We sit there and go, oh, shit, remember that Tylenol scare years ago? Yeah, I better not mess with that package that looks like some bum opened it up, took some aspirin, and put it back. So, if the American people are bright enough, some are bright enough, that you take precautions when you're cooking and buying products off the store shelf, how is it that our healthcare professionals get some type of pass when it comes to Ebola? Could you imagine if can you imagine if you go into a hospital with like a broken arm and it's something that's basic, bones aren't sticking out, you know, it's not like some Joe Theismann, Lawrence Taylor sack. It's your basic like hairline fracture, and you go in and the doctor's like, oh, well, you know what, we're going to have to put you under and you're what? And at the end of the day, you come out with your arm missing, and you're like, Doc, I woke up and you amputated my arm. You said I had a hairline fracture. Well, you know what? We're not really equipped with fixing hairline fractures, so we just know how to cut the arm off. You're not equipped? Yeah. Oh, okay. You go in there. And with a foot injury, they cut your feet off. I mean, again, you expect when you go into a hospital for that staff to know everything there is about the disease or the ailment or your headache or your chest pains. They're not supposed to say, oh, well, we weren't trained in that procedure. We don't know how to get that done. I mean, granted, when you get some type of brain surgery, at times they have specialists that might come in from a different hospital, but for the most part, they have somebody there that knows how to work on brains. You might want a certain doctor who's the greatest brain surgeon in the world, but if you're boxing in Dallas, Texas, and you get knocked out in the ring and go unconscious, and they bring you into Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, they have a doctor there that knows about brains. They go and give you a CAT scan and check your brain out, and they go, ooh, we got some bleeding there. This is the procedure we're going to have to do to save this person's life. They don't go, oh, man, whoa, every one of our doctors here at Texas Health Presbyterian, they never took the course in knowing anything about a brain. Nah, they don't know anything about brains. It's new. So I guess we're going to have to cut his head off or just let him die in a coma. And that's basically what we're being told about Ebola and it happening with the hospitals in America. Our hospitals that operate and conduct open heart surgery and brain surgery and car accidents where they save people's lives. These hospitals are not equipped for a infectious disease. How's that for having the excuse of a lifetime? Amazing. But that is what we are getting from all of the healthcare providers and doctors and so forth and so on. It's disturbing to me. It's annoying to me. And hopefully they will, I guess, get new courses and learning how to deal with Ebola. And they could put that right up with open heart surgery and, delivering babies that are not breathing, and they have to bring the baby back to life. And again, you hear stories every day from hospitals. For Christ's sakes, there's hospital TV shows from the ER that are real life situations because they are shooting a documentary, and you watch things that are happening. Bullet wounds, people being shot 6 or 7 times, losing half their blood. This stuff, they know how to do. Ebola, nope, no clue. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God, everybody's infected. So, frightening, scary, and that's the story on Texas Health Presbyterian. That's the story on Nina Pham, and that's the story on hospitals and their excuses. So let's move on to more Ebola. Like I said, guys, yesterday it was a turkey dinner, and it was just variations of the turkey. And today, it's the same thing. It's nothing more than Ebola, 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 Ebola. Just different variations of the Ebola. So, everybody's favorite Dr. Nancy, just to give you an update on sweet young thing Nancy, she broke her silence. Yes, she broke her silence since she broke the quarantine, and everybody realized what an irresponsible egomaniac she is. She gave a statement to good old Brian Williams. Yes, good old NBC Brian Williams, where he read a statement from Nancy Siderman. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know and you weren't listening yesterday, let me smarten you up. Nancy Siderman is the NBC doctor, kind of like the poor man's version of Sanjay Gupta and people like that. Well, Nancy Siderman always wants to be a high-profile celebrity doctor. She wants to be the one with the talk shows. She wants to be the one with programming that is on once a week at 10 o'clock going opposite 2020. But she can't because she's incompetent and she's an idiot. Now, she went to Liberia. She took a whole bunch of NBC workers with her, and they decided they were going to cover Ebola. They were going to go to the death camps. They were going to throw food and water over barbed wire fences to dying Africans. They were going to do the whole ball of wax so they can win a Peabody Award or whatever award you get for reporting on dangerous things and putting your life on the line for the good of the peoples that need information. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, she got one of her cameramen infected with Ebola, and their Peabody Award coverage had to be cut short. So they all got flown back to the United States, and they were to quarantine themselves for up to 21 days to make sure that the people that were with the cameraman who tested positive for Ebola also didn't come down with Ebola, considering they were all together. Well, Nancy Siderman broke the quarantine. She was spotted out buying dinner, just basically driving around the town that she's from, partying it up, whooping it up. And she got called on this, and it's basically been a buzz in the media circles because she's a doctor. I mean, let's face it. Regardless of her quasi-celebrity stature, she's still a doctor. She's still somebody that goes on these talk shows and preaches about health and safety. And here she is violating a quarantine so she could buy food. Literally, so she could buy food. This is somebody that one would have to imagine makes a couple million a year. And she can't get Pink Dot to come on over. She can't get hotfood.com to come on over. She can't get anybody else to come on over and bring her food. She's got to go out and drive and hang out and whoop it up. So the authorities now officially basically put her under a quarantine arrest and said, well, since you violated something that was voluntary, and it was just something that one would think a doctor would do because doctors want to practice what they preach, and since you violated that, we now have to actually arrest you, so to speak. We actually have to order you under quarantine. We actually have to now make it on the books that if you violate this, quarantine, we'll put you in prison. So Dr. Nancy gave Brian Williams a statement to read where she said, we are under quarantine, we haven't shown any symptoms, we are doing well, and as a health pro, I know I have no symptoms and pose no risk to the public, but I'm deeply sorry for what I did and for the panic and outrage that this has caused. Good day and good night. I mean, that was it. That was her apology was basically, I'm a health pro. I know I have no symptoms and I pose no risk. But I'm deeply sorry for what happened and that all of you got upset about it and got a little panicky. So there you go. Fuck off. That's Dr. Nancy. That was her apology. She didn't say, hey guys, my bad. I don't know what was wrong with me. I'm totally sorry. I don't know what to say. I messed up. I totally messed up. I was going stir crazy in the house, looking at my husband, looking at my kids. They're making me crazy. They're like, Mom, Ebola monster. So I just had to get out. I'm sorry, guys. Please forgive me. Nah, nothing like that. She said, hey, I'm a healthcare worker, and I know I got no symptoms, and I pose no risk. But since all of you simpletons who aren't healthcare workers and aren't doctors are all panicky and you're all upset about what I did, I'm sorry. Okay? Are you happy now? Are you happy? Can I go back out and go buy some more food and party? Are you happy now I said I'm sorry? All right, thank you. Later. Nailed it. I mean, that's Dr. Nancy Siderman and her statement to Brian Williams. That was it. So Siderman said, guess what, guys? Fuck you and good day. How's that for doucheness? Seriously. How's that for doucheness? Good old Nancy Siderman. So hopefully NBC will maybe give her the boot. I don't know. Maybe any other media outlets that normally would put her on TV will think twice. Hopefully she will basically just now go away. Because Sanjay Gupta, she is not. She definitely is not. So that's our good friend Nancy Siderman. And then, of course, I wanted to touch on our final Ebola concept before we take a break. And that is new statistics that have come out of the World Health Organization. And it's frightening. And I want to kind of put this in perspective for all of you. Because we, a couple weeks ago, had talked about Ebola and AIDS as being on the same playing field, in the same sport. And some people kind of balked at it. And then a couple days ago, the World Health Organization compared Ebola to AIDS, and I felt vindicated. Now, I'm going to give you some numbers, and this will kind of put things into perspective for you. And just think where we are now, where we could be, and how it's a possibility of the highest magnitude that this could happen. So the World Health Organization officially updated their stats. And as of today, there is 8,914 people infected with Ebola. 8,914 people infected with Ebola. Out of that, 4,447 have died. So 8,000, almost 9,000 infected, over half have died. Okay? In the last 4 weeks, there has been 1,000 people a week infected. Now, I want you to remember that number, okay? I want you to remember that number because I'm going to give you some other numbers in a little bit. But remember that number. In the last 4 weeks, there has been 1,000 people infected every week, okay? Now, the death rate was clocking in at about 50%. Well, now, Dr. Bruce Aylward, who is the head boss over at the World Health Organization, says the death rate is now 70%. That's how much this disease is climbing. Okay? And if we don't get a handle on this disease, in 2 months, there could be 10,000 new cases a week. So, if we don't stop this disease, if we don't make sure it doesn't spread, if we don't find medicine, which of course nobody ever bothered to work on because there's no money in it. We've said that a month and a half ago. And very rarely do you hear people talking like that because it's a cynical commentary. But remember, there's no money in finding a cure or a treatment for something that affects black people in Africa. They don't have Kaiser Permanente. They don't have any type of insurance that will cover that drug. And they don't have any money in their pockets. Okay? They can't trade spears and bow and arrows for drugs to treat Ebola. So in turn, nobody bothered to give a shit enough to work on a cure or a treatment for the Ebola. No money, and it kills Africans. 2 things that the American people are like, fuck it. If I can't make money off of something, what's the point of doing it? And if it kills a bunch of Africans, who cares? It's all good. That's an American virtue. Well, I shouldn't say American virtue. That's a Republican virtue. Okay? That's a Republican virtue, which is a little less than half the country. Remember, when you talk about Democrats and Republicans, you're pretty much evenly divided, give or take a couple million people that decide presidential elections. So half the country says, we don't care, there's no money in it, and it kills Africans, so not my problem. And unless we decide that, guess what? This disease is going to overtake the United States, so we better come up with a drug to treat it. We are going to have 10,000 cases a week. These 10,000 cases a week are not all going to be coming from Africa. Okay? You already see, if you look at the map, we have cases that are sprouting all over. You got Africa. You got Spain. You got here United States. You got Germany. You got places that are starting to look like a epidemic from a movie involving zombies or something like that, where it shows the map and it has red dots of where the infections start, and then the red dots start to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, like Planet of the Apes, the monkey disease. 10,000 cases a week if this disease is not contained in the next 2 months. That's frightening, ladies and gentlemen. That is frightening. Now, let me put it in perspective. In 1981, HIV/AIDS was on the scene. Okay, it peeked its head up. It went, "Hey, here we are," and that was spawned from West Central Africa. Sound familiar? Yes. West Africa, where Ebola is, also spawned HIV/AIDS. In 1981, when this disease peeked up its head, nobody cared because it only killed gays and people that shared needles. So if you weren't sucking dick or you weren't popping needles with drug addicts as a man, you were cool. And of course, you couldn't get AIDS from a woman. And with all of that knowledge, everybody went on their merry ways. Well, as time went on and we realized that it wasn't just a gay disease and it wasn't just a bunch of drug addicts under a bridge somewhere shooting dope up, it was too late. And HIV/AIDS spread. And it spread to the tune of 36 million deaths. Yes. Since 1981, there's been 36 million deaths. And since 2012, there are 35 million people living with HIV/AIDS. So, in theory, you have 70 million people collectively been either infected or died from the infection since 1981. Think about that. Think about that. A disease that started in West Africa, a disease that nobody cared about because it only affected a bunch of black people, and then when it spread to the United States, it only affected gays and junkies. That went on to kill 36 million people as of today, dating back to 81. And since 2012, that disease right now affects 35 million people. 35 million people are living with HIV/AIDS right now. And the CDC estimates, the CDC estimates that there are 50,000 new cases a year of HIV/AIDS. Years and years and years ago, it was much higher. So with education to a degree and people, watching out for activities that they do, that has slowed down to a manageable situation. Now, 50,000 cases a year breaks down to 1,000 a week. That's what it breaks down to. Right now, we are being hit at 1,000 cases a week of Ebola. Remember I said that number on the Ebola would rear its head in this conversation? So right now, we have 1,000 cases a week in the last 4 weeks of Ebola. Right now, we get 1,000 cases a week of new HIV/AIDS infections. If we don't do something about Ebola, we are going to have 10,000 cases a week in the next 2 months. We are on pace, ladies and gentlemen, for Ebola to be the next HIV/AIDS. But here's the troubling, scary, frightening, creepy part. Where HIV/AIDS you can't get from shaking a hand, kissing, or things of that magnitude. And if you can, you're talking about something that is in the 1% chance. Because ultimately, it has to be blood to blood, semen to blood. So in turn, if you don't have unprotected sex with somebody and you don't share needles with somebody, something that we've been taught for the last 30 years, your chances of getting HIV/AIDS are practically zilch. Practically zilch. If you live a monogamous relationship, or you don't have sex at all, except with your hand, and you don't shoot dope with needles, you probably will have a life of loneliness, yes, but free of HIV/AIDS. Okay? I'm pretty safe to say that's what will happen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Ebola is a lot different. Ebola, you can get the disease from making out, kissing somebody, from having their sweat on you. You can get Ebola with the transfer of any bodily fluids, not just semen and blood, but sweat, tears, saliva. This, in essence, is HIV/AIDS times 10 back in 1981. In 1981, when HIV/AIDS started, and there was no drugs that prolonged people's lives 30, 40, 50 years. There was no Magic Johnson super drugs. There was nothing like that. You got HIV/AIDS within a year. You weighed 60 pounds and then you died. This is like 1981 AIDS, except again, back in that era, you died quick, there was nothing to prolong your life, and the fact that the only way you could get it was blood to blood, semen to blood, which would be having sex or sharing needles. This disease, you actually could get it by sharing sweat. In theory, if you're at a gym and somebody has Ebola and they're feeling a little fluey and they just load up with some Advil, some fever reducer, because in their mind they have a cold and they're going to work through it because they have a presentation on Monday, and they go to the gym to sweat their cold out, that sweat that is being left on the workout equipment is full of Ebola. The minute you lay on it, you got the disease now. You have somebody working in a restaurant and they're a little fluey, but they take their medicine and they work through. We all know people have worked at restaurants that are sick. And when I mean sick, we're not talking about, oh my God, and they're working over the food. But we're talking about people that go to work and they go, oh man, I don't know if I'm coming down with a cold, but I feel achy. I got my sinuses are stuffed up. I took some Theraflu. I feel fine, but I definitely feel something coming on. That person with Ebola can infect hundreds of people in that restaurant. So, ladies and gentlemen, Ebola is as close to an airborne disease as we possibly can get. It is HIV/AIDS on steroids. So, what you need to do is write your local politician, write your pastor, whoever you talk to or you can talk to that has some form of authority. You need them to not talk to the president, not talk to a surgeon general that's not there, not talk to some czar that's not there. These people need to talk to drug companies. Somebody needs to talk to drug companies. Our president needs to talk to drug. Right now, the most important thing that we can do as a society, as a country, as the world population is look to the owners of drug companies, the presidents, the CEOs, and say, hey, you need to bust out that Ebola medicine. Because we know it's there. We know it's just sitting on a shelf somewhere because it's one of those things that didn't make money, but eventually it would come in handy because maybe Americans with money would get it, and then you can make billions. The drug companies are who need to be involved. So when we're sitting here talking about presidents and politicians and all of these people, there's nothing they can do by themselves. They can't order no-fly zones. They can't order more screenings. Sure, that can all be done, but that's not solving the problem. You can educate, sure, but that's not solving the problem. The only thing that's going to solve this problem is a drug. That a drug company, yes, the dreaded drug companies that we complain about, that have raised the cost of all of our healthcare needs. Those evil sons of bitches now actually have to redeem themselves. Could you imagine if one of these drug companies in the next couple weeks go, hey, guess what? We just busted out this Ebola drug. We're going to start trying it on some Ebola people. We got the emergency green light from the FDA. We're all good. We're going to test it. If everything is cool, we will have a cure for Ebola in the next month. So here we go. We're testing right now. Here we go. And then in 3 weeks, they have a press conference and go, guys, we tested in these 10 patients. It worked. They're cool again. They're playing tennis. They're taking Viagra, watching them creepy commercials on TV. We're good to go. Those drug companies will be put on a pedestal, and people never again will complain about what they have to pay when it comes to drugs. Those drug companies can get a free pass as far as the American people are concerned, as far as the world is concerned. So the drug companies is who we need right now, from politicians to presidents to dictators to anybody out there that people are looking for, from Vladimir Putin saying he has a cure to senators. All these people can be thrown out the window. The drug companies, that's who need to step up. That's who we need to have do something. So the drug companies, when we're sitting there having airports with checkpoints and so forth and so on, we need to have people at the drug companies saying, you guys got 48 hours to bust out the cure and treatment for Ebola. Thank you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a fact. If not, you're going to see Ebola become HIV/AIDS. And when you have 36 million people that have been that died of HIV/AIDS from 1981, you will see triple that number, because Ebola you can get from not just fucking. You could actually get it from kissing. So let's see if they're going to work on this and actually solve this problem. It's the Rob Black Show, ladies and gentlemen. What we're going to do is take a break right now. And when we come back, we're going to be at the new desk, the new command post. Now, bear with me, because it could get a little rocky here. Could get a little rocky. This is a one-man show right now, okay? It's a one-man show with a big-breasted 25-year-old girl in the other room, but she's not in this room. So we are operating on a one-man show. It's the Rob Black Show. We'll be right back after these words.